totally stable thing for her to be posting, wishing harm upon Trump voters, wishing that we have no peace.
They're petrified of some kind of backlash.
I wanted my money back. It was very disappointing.
The drama surrounding Disney's live-action Snow White remake has become a cultural powder keg, with Rachel Zegler at its controversial center and critics across the spectrum. Most notably Joe Rogan and Bill Maher, calling the film one of Disney's most catastrophic misfires. What started as a bold attempt to reimagine a beloved fairy tale has turned into a cautionary tale of ideological overreach, poor casting optics, and blatant disregard for what audiences actually want to see in a classic adaptation. And despite millions spent on production and marketing, what Disney got in return wasn't applause. It was backlash, bad press, and box office disappointment on an unprecedented scale. From the moment Zegler began discussing her vision for Snow White, alarm bells started ringing. She publicly distanced herself from the original 1937 film, mocking its romantic storyline and even calling the prince a stalker. She boasted in interviews that her Snow White would not dream of true love, and that the story had been radically shifted to focus on self-empowerment rather than romance. While the goal may have been to modernize the character, the execution came across as dismissive, almost hostile, toward the very fans who had loved the story for generations. The dwarfs were removed and replaced with bizarre CGI creatures. The iconic song, "Someday My Prince Will Come," was deleted and replaced with a feminist anthem, and everything that once gave Snow White its timeless magical identity seemed stripped away. Adding fuel to the fire were Zegler's political outbursts on social media. In the months leading up to the release, posts resurfaced in which she told Trump supporters to go away and never know peace. She openly criticized half the country's political beliefs, alienating a massive segment of the film's potential audience. Even those who didn't support Trump found her tone aggressive and inappropriate, especially coming from the face of a Disney movie meant for families. It wasn't just bad PR, it was self-inflicted sabotage. Joe Rogan and Bill Maher, despite their political differences, both saw the disaster coming. On his podcast, Rogan ripped into the film's priorities, accusing Disney of focusing more on appeasing online outrage than telling a good story. He pointed out that Snow White had become a Frankenstein of political messaging, bloated with unnecessary musical numbers and saddled with a confused, joyless tone.
And they were like, what? We just want to work. We're dwarves. So, ho, ho, ho. This is just so typical of the...
Maher echoed the sentiment, particularly criticizing the removal of the dwarfs in an effort to appear more progressive, ironically at the cost of real job opportunities for little-person actors. Behind the scenes, things were no better. Disney executives reportedly scrambled to do damage control once they realized Zegler's public image was doing more harm than good. Internal debates raged over whether to delay the release, reshoot scenes, or invest in a separate PR campaign just to manage her public behavior. They even hired a special media handler to monitor her posts after a tweet celebrating the role was followed minutes later by a highly controversial pro-Palestinian statement. The timing was disastrous, considering her co-star Gal Gadot's well-known support for Israel, and it only exacerbated tensions both on set and online. Once the film hit theaters, the outcome was worse than anyone expected. The movie cost over $200 million to produce, yet opened to just $43 million, a massive shortfall by Disney standards. Merchandise sat unsold on shelves, social media erupted in memes mocking the film, and theaters were reportedly near empty. Zegler was even spotted watching her own movie in a deserted cinema with a few friends, in what quickly became a viral image of professional embarrassment. That awkward moment, documented in TikToks and online photos, became a symbol of everything that had gone wrong with Snow White. Fan reactions weren't subtle either. People felt insulted. They weren't just upset by the film's lack of charm, they felt like they were being lectured by someone who didn't even like the source material. Zegler's sarcastic remarks about potentially cutting her co-star Andrew Burnip's scenes and her smug tone during press tours came across as tone-deaf, even arrogant. She told fans that they needed to move on from the past, but instead of inspiring them, she alienated them. The removal of the dwarfs became a focal point for wider criticism. Peter Dinklage had previously commented that using little-person actors for the roles could be seen as regressive. Disney responded by removing the characters entirely and replacing them with a strange assortment of magical beings. But this move backfired, especially as actors with dwarfism came forward expressing frustration that they had lost out on iconic roles that were practically made for them. The original 7 dwarfs were not just caricatures. They had personalities, heart, and purpose. Stripping them away for fear of being offensive didn't come off as sensitive. It came off as cowardly and confused. With all of this swirling around the film, Disney found itself in uncharted territory. The company had already suffered losses from other underperforming projects like Lightyear and Strange World, but Snow White was supposed to be different. This was a cornerstone property, a guaranteed win. Instead, it became a laughingstock and a symbol of how quickly brand loyalty can vanish when studios forget what made their properties special to begin with. And then came the cultural commentary. Rogan, Maher, conservative pundits, and even many liberal fans pointed to Snow White as the moment Disney officially jumped the shark. It was no longer just about pushing boundaries or telling stories in new ways. It was about rewriting classics to fit into a modern ideological mold that many felt was neither necessary nor authentic. The film didn't offer thoughtful modernization. It offered hollow slogans and empty spectacle. As for Zegler, her fall from grace was swift. Once hailed as a rising star, she was now being viewed as a liability. Directors and producers began to question whether casting her was worth the risk. Her talent was undeniable, but her public persona was divisive. Some began speculating that she might struggle to find major studio work unless she underwent a serious image makeover. In the end, the story of Snow White 2025 wasn't just about a failed movie. It was about how arrogance, political posturing, and a disregard for what fans actually love can bring even the most iconic franchises crashing down. Zegler may bounce back one day. Hollywood loves a redemption arc, but it will take a lot of humility and a very different approach to publicity. For Disney, the lesson is even more critical. You cannot insult your audience and expect them to reward you at the box office. So the real moral of this story isn't about dwarfs or poisoned apples. It's about respect. Respect for legacy, respect for audiences, and respect for the stories that built the most powerful brand in family entertainment. Without that, even the fairest of them all can fall hard.